Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Lambdin grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Moving Home with Charlie Lambdin. I'm Charlie Lambdin. And this evening, we're talking about the fact that according to Best Agent's figures, Best Agent is my website, median asking prices of houses went up in England 1.3% in February. How can that be? What does it mean? What could it mean? Before I answer that question, I just want to welcome all my new subscribers. Welcome back all my existing subscribers. Thank you. We passed 11,000 subscribers on YouTube today. Good evening, Andrew Taylor, John Rocks, Crypto Bizzle, Eddie Ward, David Miller, Darren from Suffolk, Tasbo, new name there. Welcome. Sparks London. One of the main things I try to do in these videos is to help demystify what's happening at the coalface of house transactions. And by the coalface, I mean, what are the deals being agreed today? Now, we've had a couple of bits of news out this week. One was that the HMRC confirmed that transactions in January were down 27% on December, and they were down 7% on the previous January, and they're the lowest. There's too many figures that blow my head, but basically transactions are down, and official average house prices are falling as well. But yet we still don't know. So, I mean, year on year house prices can be going up, month on month they're going down, transactions can be falling, but house prices can be rising. And so what's actually happening? And what's actually happening in one part of the country versus the other part of the country? On the two ends of the scale of a house move, you've got the asking prices, and we do have reasonably good access to asking prices around the country. Okay, so there is publicly available asking price data. But as we know, asking price doesn't equal actual price, sold price. Asking prices are just asking prices. And on the other end of the scale, we've got completed prices. Now, the problem is that the asking prices appear, on average, 3 to 6 months before a transaction is agreed, typically. And the agreed actual prices after the transaction appear 3 to 6 months after the transaction was agreed. So we've got this period in the middle of 6 to 12 months of mystery when no one really knows what's happening. And that's why people, what's happening in the house price? What's happening in house price? Where can I find house price data? And I'm trying with my access to behind the scenes data, my access to Best Agent data, to demystify what's happening at the coalface. And ultimately, what I'm hoping the Best Agent will achieve is that we'll start to get some indicative prices of what's happening at the agreed stage and maybe even the exchange stage, because exchanged prices are locked. That's an actual transaction price, and exchange prices can be many months before we get the final official confirmation of the exchange prices. But in the middle, all we can do is try and guess and interpret and listen to all the guff we get from estate agents who will tell us what, but I want to get something across, guys. If you want to move home because you need to move home, whether house prices are going up or whether house prices are going down shouldn't be the main consideration of your move. The most common question asked is now a good time to buy? Well, if you need a home and you've got the money, yes, now's a great time to buy. You know, if you're asking, is now a good time to buy from a speculative point of view? Well, that's a different question. And of course, there are other considerations, but generally speaking, if you are in a position to buy and you want a home, always buy now, but just don't overpay. Don't overpay is more complicated than not when the house prices are uncertain or falling, or whether there's a risk of negative equity. And that's the phase that we are in now, I believe. And when this channel really kicked off in August 2022 with my 8 reasons UK house prices will collapse, I was explaining what I could see happening at the coalface. This was before the September mini budget. And I want to talk a little bit in this video about what I think is happening at the coalface today, because there's no transparency of it at all. You can only go on what you know from behind the scenes, what I know from behind the scenes, talking to people behind the scenes. But what I'm going to show you now, I think, is one step closer to being able to understand what is happening at the coalface today of house transactions. Let me get the... So this is the information that came out of Best Agent yesterday. I've got England and Wales, I've got sales, I've got lettings, but I'm just going to focus on England's sales for now. And what you can see is that the median price of asking prices of properties that are listed for sale, as opposed to those that are still listed as under offer, in England is £304,000. Now that is for a total of 223,000 homes currently showing in England for sale publicly. By comparison, there's 125,000 roughly showing publicly, but as sale agreed or sold subject to contract. And the average price, and this is interesting because Rightmove's, remember, this is England, not UK, all right? And I'm hoping this is actually a bit more helpful. Not if you're in Scotland or Northern Ireland, but if you're in England or Wales, I'm hoping it's a bit more helpful. Now, this does include London. Confusingly, Rightmove's average price excludes central London, or what they call inner London. I didn't know that till today. I've been digging deep into that Rightmove house price index, right? So Rightmove UK asking prices excludes central London. So the average is 424, but the median is 304,000. That's quite a big difference, isn't it? Right? But I am increasingly convinced, the more I study this data, that the median price is much more meaningful in terms of what's really happening and what's more realistic in the real world. And also the median price doesn't move in the same way that the average price moves. And what I'm about to demonstrate to you on a spreadsheet is why average prices can be seen to increase when the median doesn't change, even if actual prices are going down. Okay, so average asking price can go up when the actual prices are going down. Let me explain. Now, you'll have to forgive me because I know that's very, very tiny on the screen. I'll try and... That's the best I can do. I don't know if you guys can see those numbers. I'm sorry that they're so small. But what I've done here is I've listed a fictional list of properties. And so each one of those... let me just hide this so you can see me down the bottom. Each one of these prices in the list, I'm imagining, is a home for sale. A home showing for sale, okay? And I've done a spread between £400,000 at the bottom and £1 million at the top. But from the bottom to halfway, it just goes from 400,000 to 500,000. But from the middle to the top, it goes from 500,000 to $1 million. So there's a sort of slightly kind of typical spread where there are more properties at the lower value. And what I want to show you is this. Okay, look what happens to the average. So the average price is showing at the moment is £541,000. Can you actually see that, guys? Is this a waste of time? Can you see the numbers if you're watching on a? Can anyone tell me whether you can actually see the average and median? They're the only the numbers you need to see. Can you see the average and median price on there? Anyone? Can you tell me? Yeah, because Emma Anderson says boomers downsizing. I think this is the point I want to show you. So I'm hoping that you can see this. Someone says no, someone says yes. It's all I can do. I didn't get myself together. No, okay. I'll explain. Currently, the average is showing is 541,000, and the median is showing as 495,000. Okay, 541,000 average, 495 median. So that is a £46,000 difference. Now, let's see what happens if we put in, I want to show you sort of what happens to the average price when, let's just say, out of those 25 properties or so, one property comes on with a much higher price. Let's put in 1.5 million. Okay, and the average price jumps by £24,000. So with that one property going on on that list of about roughly 40 properties, the average has jumped because of one property going, but the asking price of all the others hasn't changed at all. Now, so that's someone at the top end putting on market. Now let's just say that one of the houses at the bottom comes off because it gets sold, so it just disappears. Look what happens to the average asking price because the cheapest property sells. It goes up. Average prices are going up. Average prices just jumped £4,000. Well, because one property at the bottom sold. Yeah. So I'll undo that. Put that property back in and take the one at the top off, just to go back to how we were. And I want to show you what happens if we put on, we're going to put on one extra property at the top and one at the bottom. Okay. So average 541, median 495. At the top, I'm going to put on another million pound property. At the bottom, I'm going to put on another £400,000 property. And the average just jumped by £7,000, but the median stayed the same. All the prices in the middle didn't change. You see? So what I'm trying to show you here is the average is really sensitive. Even when I put one at the bottom and one at the top, the average still went up. Let's put on a couple more. Let's put on another one at the bottom and another one at the top. And average has gone up again, yet the median stays the same. Okay, so can you see what I'm showing you here? Is that the median, if you are someone who is operating in the middle of that section, which is where you care about the prices most of all, the median hasn't changed. The average is going all over the place. So the point is that averages, I think, are an unhelpful indicator of what's actually happening. So let me come back to the best agent data that I've got. All right. And I'll make that big again so you can see, right? So the average is 424. Now, I think we should be disregarding averages. I just think averages are unhelpful. Unless you're in government and you're working out GDP based on national prices, the average price is of no use or help to anyone, all right? Especially that it's an asking price. But average prices in general are of no use or help to anyone because regionally things go up and down. But the median price, so what's happened with the median price is that median price has not changed for about 4 or 5 weeks. It's been at 300,000 exactly. And this week, we do it every single week. This week, it jumped £4,000 or about 1.3%. Okay, but what I want to show you is, again, going back to the spreadsheet, just by putting more properties onto the market at a higher price, okay, the median is barely moving. So, is going up, even though nothing at the bottom is actually changing. I feel like I'm rambling a bit here, but I'm going to stop. So I just want to try, and I'm going to be doing a lot more about median and averages and try and do a lot more median stuff and publish this median price on a more regular basis because I think it's going to be a much, much more reliable indicator of what is happening to asking prices. Still doesn't tell us what's happening to actual prices, but it's a much more reliable thing of what's happening to asking prices than averages are, even though the median is still going up because actual properties at the bottom are selling and more properties are coming on higher up. Okay, so best agent figures show that the median asking price has gone up in England by 1.3% this week, but that doesn't mean that house prices are going up. Okay, so if there are agents watching this, please remember it doesn't mean that house prices are going up. When asking prices can be influenced by the fact there's more high price stock coming on or more low stuff. Now, guys, if the market's going the other way around, the opposite could be true. let's say we're in a rampant rising house market and the expensive stuff is flying off the shelves, but the cheaper stuff is sticking around. That would show average asking prices coming down when house prices are actually going up. Okay, so this is the point. It's confusing, right? Whatever's happening, it's confusing, and that's why to have an index of actual exchanged prices at the point of exchange would be much more useful than anything else that's out there right now. So just quickly, let me just give you a bit more out of just so you can see what's happening in lettings as well. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting stuff. So those two lines are, the top line is homes that are listed for sale. The second line down is homes that are still showing but sale agreed. And I think it's interesting to see the difference between the median price of stuff that's for sale, which is unsold, and stuff that's showing as sold subject to contract. Okay, now the difference in that price is now £19,000. 285 hasn't changed this week. It's still the same as last week, because this is showing the median price of properties. It's still showing the asking price, not the actual price that it's sold at, but the median asking price of properties sold is £19,000 lower than the median asking price of properties for sale. I think that's more helpful. I think that's giving you a bit more of an indication of what is happening in the real world on average in England, including London, by the way. These figures include London. And we've also got lettings. Now look at the difference in the ratio. So I think there's a story to show the ratio there, and I'm tracking this ratio. Okay, so the 223,000 homes that are for sale, that's gone up from just over 200,000 about a month ago. It's gone up about 10% in a month, and yet the sales agreed number has barely moved. It's gone up by about 3,000 or 4,000 in that month, which is why I'm saying there are about 4 new homes coming on the market for every 1 home going under offer at the moment. So that is supply increasing and signs that demand is not keeping up with the increase in supply, which is going to put downward pressure on prices. Now here we are on lettings, 100,000 homes to let around the country in total, which by the way is up slightly on a month ago. And look at the difference in median and average here. It's crazy. That's a £700 difference in the average and the median price. Okay. Now let agreed homes, 20,000 with a median price of £900 a month let. So that I think is also quite helpful. Properties that are being shown as gone under offer, rental properties under offer, median price £900. Okay, but still about 20% lower than the median asking price of the unlet stock. Okay, now, I do have the stuff for Wales as well. A quick look at that. So this is Wales. Median price. Oh, sorry. Let's try and get this just right. Median price in asking price in Wales is 240, average 300,000. So the same problem there. Again, the median price for sold stuff is £15,000 lower. Okay. Much smaller numbers of properties for sale in Wales, 6,000 versus 2,000 sold and let, 2,000, which is a tiny, I mean, that's 1/50th. There's a tiny amount of stock in Wales compared to England, and a smaller difference. So guys, I don't know, I'd love to know what you think. Do you think that, given that we're talking about asking prices only, are median asking prices less unhelpful than average asking prices? Do you agree? I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this. By the way, there's a link to this page in the video below if you want to go and have a look at it for yourself. Okay. And yeah, in due course, we will expand to cover Scotland and Northern Ireland, but only when we've got this absolutely down and we're doing it right. So what else did I want to cover with you? I wanted to cover the fact that Lloyds Bank did some, they put their annual report out, and there was some interesting stuff on that. Let me share this with you. So I've also put a link to this. This is a PDF of the Lloyds Bank annual report. Okay. And this page I'm sharing with you here, I will just go back to the full screen so you can read it as best you can. I wanted to pick a couple of things. There's a couple of interesting things in here. So first of all, I picked out this. So after recent strong house price growth, expect a fall of circa 7% in 2023, peak to trough fall 12%. So that's Lloyds Banking Group, whose base case, and we're going to go on and show you all the different cases they've done, because they've got several different scenarios, but their base case is that peak to trough fall in nominal house prices of 12%. John Stepek on Bloomberg tweeted today that actually he dug into this and did the numbers with real house prices, and it's showing a 24% peak to trough fall in house prices in real terms, inflation adjusted. So what I wanted you to look at was this graph over here, because the dotted line is showing where we are now, just at the end of Q4 2022, okay? And let's just sort of house prices. So the house prices, that horizontal line there is where they start to go negative from where they were. And they're showing them staying negative territory for quite a long time. That's not year-on-year changes. That's just look how long and slow that curve is. So that's got them bottoming out Q4 2024, starting to increase Q2 2025. Okay, and the Q4 is they're more up to date. So Q3 was the grey line. They have basically lowered their expectation of house prices in Q4. Sort of most recently, so in the last quarter, their outlook on house prices has got lower. And unemployment is looking bad. Their forecast on unemployment is looking that going from below 4% now to up above 5% and staying high into 2025. It's showing slightly lower than they forecast 3 months ago, so that's an encouragement. That's an improvement. I don't understand. So the UK bank rate, they're showing 4%. That doesn't make any sense. That's where it is now. And inflation, they're showing coming down more slowly. Now, there was a story out today on Bloomberg that this is America, right? But the markets are starting to believe in higher for longer. Now, this is good news in terms of economic growth, but bad news in terms of inflation, and that's why it's bad news in terms of interest rates. So that is also something to bear in mind, is that the markets are starting to price in that interest rates might be higher for longer. But just coming back to this presentation, there's a couple things I wanted to show you. So that's that page. I've linked to this below again. Go and have a look. This is page 26, okay? Page 27 had something interesting as well. Now, so Lloyds, in terms of how much are, because don't forget that Lloyds Bank owns Halifax, okay, which is one of the biggest mortgage lenders. And I found this interesting. So the average mortgage loan to value of their whole mortgage book is 42%, right? And 94% of their entire book has a less than 80% loan to value, okay? So that means that Lloyds is not seriously exposed to house price falls of even 20%. And that's encouraging news for all of us, right? Now, somewhere, I can't remember where it was now, they do have like 0.1% of their mortgages are more than 100% now, which means that they've got 0.1%, and it's about 300 million of mortgage lending for properties that are in slightly negative equity. Doesn't spell out which ones. And the other page I wanted to show you was this. Oh no, that's right. It was this one here, number 42, where it actually shows. So that's interesting. I think that's for people who are worried about banking collapse. To me, this shows that no, they really are very, very strong, and their book is solid. All right, so they're not worried about that. But I do want to make this point about forecasts, which is that banks are rarely realistic enough with their forecasts. Things tend to be a bit worse than they forecast. And I looked up, and there's an article on the BBC website, which this is just looking at the OBR accuracy and OBR forecasting, and they're forecasting on growth over the last so that's 2013 to 2019. I think that's 7 years. Is that the the growth beat forecast 6 times, but the growth did not meet the forecast 8 times. So that line is their forecast. And the same on borrowing. So government borrowing was above forecast, so worse than forecast 13 times, and was only below forecast twice. Okay, so the OBR is very, very optimistic. But what was interesting was that the OBR, by law, must include whatever published government policy is. So they can't express an opinion about it. They have to make a forecast based on what the current government's saying will currently do. So guys, I said that I would come back to talking about what I think is happening at the coalface right now, okay, for which I don't have much data to go on. Very important to say this. So what I'm about to say is purely based on the insights that I have, my personal insights based on the relationships I have with estate agents, with mortgage brokers, with conveyancers, with other people in the industry, the data set that I've got, the CRM data behind the scenes that I've got, and what I'm hearing. And we are coming up towards the end of February 2023. And at the coalface, for which there is no public data at all, a bit like I said back in August when I said I could feel house prices are falling and no one saw that they were. These are the following things observations I've got to make. Transaction volumes are dropping so steeply. So transaction volumes we just had from HMRC are for 5 months ago, right? Still not even, I mean, only just catching up with the mini budget. Transaction volumes right now, I have heard the expression from people in the industry, falling off a cliff. I've heard suppliers to estate agents saying that their clients are pulling out, cancelling their spend because they're saying, we just don't know how bad this is going to get. Our pipeline is drying up. Deals are falling apart. We can't get them back together. Yes, of course, there are some agents doing very well. Some very good agents who are getting properties sold and tying deals together. And that's why in this environment, the value of a really good agent is more important than ever if your move is essential. Okay. Those asking prices we're showing, especially the average versus median asking prices, say to me that there are a lot of people with their housing on the market. Now, someone I know, and I've known for a long time, who knows what I do. And this is where an example of my understanding and knowledge and expertise not going into someone's mind. This is someone who says to me all the time, oh, I know so-and-so, and their house just isn't selling. Their house just won't sell. And I say to them every single time, no, they want too much money for it. Every house will sell today if it's priced correctly. And that person always goes, oh yeah, okay, all right. And yet it never goes in. And I see them again and they say to me, yeah, so-and-so's trying to sell the house. Their house just won't sell. No, they won't lower their price. And I think we are seeing that very intensely right now. There was that tweet I put out a few days ago about one of my followers thanked me for helping them they said that my advice helped them get 20% off the asking price of a property. It was a £500,000 property and they bought it for £400,000. And I put that up on Twitter, and what they said is that they put on YouTube that they'd done that, and they got lots of people on YouTube saying, you've just taken 20 years of someone's retirement or 5 years of someone's retirement. You've just cost someone their pension. You've just cost them their savings. And this person got a lot of stick from angry sellers saying, you shouldn't have done that. As if the seller had no choice but to sell it at that price. Well, first of all, the seller didn't have to sell at that price if they didn't want to, number one. Number two, the seller would only have agreed to sell it at that price because there were no other offers. Refusing to sell your house because you can't get the asking price does not mean your house is worth the asking price because you won't sell it. It doesn't mean it, okay? And I think a lot of people have got this baked in understanding that that's the value of my pension. And yes, of course, it's very hard to get your head around it. And I am not expressing an opinion on politics or reasons why we're here. But if you cannot find a buyer for your property at the price you want, it's because their property is not worth the price you're asking for it. The market is telling you today that property is not worth the price you're asking for it. And that might change next week. It might change next month. Right? The market might come back up. I might be wrong. Prices might not be falling. And if you just wait, maybe someone will come along. I don't think so. In the current market, I don't think that's happening. But that buyer got that property because nobody else offered more. That is the only reason he got that property 20% off the asking price. Is the only reason. There were no other offers. That is what the market is. The market is, what are the offers right now? The market for your house, if you're selling it, is the offers being made right now. That is the market for your house. Okay? And just because you think it's worth X, if no one's offering X, it is not worth X today. It might change tomorrow, but today it's not worth that money. Now, I get that might be a very painful realization for some people who are convinced that the house is worth what they think it's worth. And by the way, this is a nightmare for the estate agents involved as well. Absolute nightmare for the estate agents involved as well. All right. A good estate agent cannot help a seller with this mindset. The best estate agents will say at the point of valuation, I do not believe your house is worth what you think it is. I'm happy to take the instruction on. And if you want to insist on that price, we'll put it on that price and I will do my best. But I'm telling you now, I don't think it's worth that much. And that's why my advice to estate agents at the moment with clients like that is to say to the client, I'm really sorry, I cannot go on investing time in a property that will not sell. And therefore, if you cannot drop your price to a price that I believe I can sell it at, or get interest at least, then I'm going to ask you to either drop your price or find another agent. Now that might just jolt some sellers into waking up to the reality, because right now, I don't think we are even close to seeing the biggest house price falls yet. Okay, because what's happening month in and month out is more and more people are coming to the end of their fixed rate mortgage, and some of those people can't afford it and are being forced to sell. More and more landlords are selling up for the same reason, because their fixed rate mortgage has come to an end, the new mortgage is too high, the rent doesn't cover it, they've got to sell. Other landlords are going, actually, because of the changes in government and tax and everything else, we're renting at a loss, doesn't make sense, we're going to sell. This trend is increasing. And slowly, as reality is dawning on sellers, more, and of course, there are those sellers who are waiting for the spring market. You guys are doing that. If you've got a very rare and unusual type of property for which there is always demand, and the type of buyers you've got are going to be buyers with cash amounts, not borrowing too much, then yes, you might still get a good price for your property. Okay, you might. If there are very rare properties, very desirable properties in areas of people who've got plenty of money, you may well sell. But if you are selling, I cannot state this clearly enough. The sellers that drop their prices soonest will sell for the most amount of money. The longer you wait, the less you will get, is my very strongly held belief right now. Okay? I am not on anyone's side, buyer or seller. I'm on the side of a mover. If you need to move, I'm telling you that the way to get the best price for your house if you're selling is to get the best agent and get competing buyers. Okay? And if you're a buyer, make sure you find out if there are any other buyers, because if there are no other buyers, then you're the only offer. You've got a very good chance of getting a price at a much lower price. You are the market if you're the only offer. So, but at the same time, guys, what I'm saying doesn't mean you should be unrealistic as buyers either, okay? Where you've got a problem as a buyer now is if you're the only person offering on a property, then the seller must consider that offer. We've got a couple of things looming. We've got the budget coming up. The 15th of March, we've got the budget coming up. And I am not expecting any major government intervention. I think there are some people expecting government intervention. But if they were going to, why are they waiting? Why haven't they intervened? Now, let's just talk about the fact that the government's Help to Buy scheme, okay, doesn't actually stop until the end of March. New applications stopped before Christmas, but there are applications going through where the government is lending 40% of the value of new homes, up to a maximum 600,000 in London, and 20% outside London. Okay, so there is still that slight upward pressure on people that successfully applied for and got Help to Buy before the deadline ended in 31st of October, I think it was. That's about to end. Now, will the government release some sort of new Help to Buy scheme? I don't know. If they do, I don't think it's going to be as strong as it was before, because there is now a fairly strong argument that it increased to overinflating house prices. Some of you might say, well, that's what the government wants to do. But they could have extended it and they've chosen not to. And the reason is that I think it costs the government a lot of money. And I don't think the government wants to be lending on new transactions when they know it's the top of the market and the market's going to fall and they're going to have a lot of bad debt. Because the one thing the government has learnt the hard way since the mini budget is that the markets will not let it spend money propping up the economy if they are unfunded spending promises. Okay, the markets that lend the government money, and the government's having record borrowing at the moment, so the government is totally dependent on the markets lending money, and the price, the government doesn't set the price that it borrows at, the market sets the price the government borrows at. And that's costing the government much more money right now. And they are doing everything to try and get their deficit down. So they can't afford to prop up a market that's falling. That is my view. They do not have the money to prop it up. So I am not expecting, so I'm not making a prediction. I don't have a strong enough view on this. But my expectation is that there will be no intervention, or what intervention there will be very limited and will only be put in place to try to prevent repossessions. Okay, that's what the government doesn't want is people being made homeless, because that costs the government a lot more money, actually. So what they may well do is go, right, what does it cost us when someone gets made homeless? And so that's the amount of money it's worth of spending to stop people being made homeless. And so they may extend the universal credit mortgage interest relief support that they have. Otherwise, I'm not expecting government intervention. And for that reason, so if I'm wrong, and if in March the government unveils lots and lots of free money to help the housing market, I might have to rethink my 35% forecast, because my 35% house price fall from peak to trough forecast has always had the caveat of barring any major unexpected intervention. I am not expecting any major intervention. And if there is, my expectations were wrong. But I've always reserved the right to reconsider that forecast if there's intervention, but I don't think there's going to be intervention. So if there isn't intervention, then I think that in Q2 of this year is when we're really going to, because my God, it happens in slow motion. It just happens in so slow motion. It really does. You can see the effects of the mini budget have not yet come through in actual transaction figures. You can see that they're just starting to now. And that was nearly 6 months ago, 5 months ago. So I think the spring market, if there's no intervention, is going to start to see some sellers getting realistic and a lot more properties coming onto the market. And the more properties that come onto the market priced realistically, the more the unrealistic sellers are going to have to rethink their situation. And of course, people who don't need to sell may decide not to sell. Okay, there's nothing anyone can do about that. And so I get a lot of people asking me everything. By the way, guys, I can't ever give advice on your personal decision or situation, because I don't know. I'm not you. I don't know the situation, I don't know the property. But nevertheless, I get people sending me a message every day saying, why won't the seller drop their price? I don't know. If you haven't found out the seller situation, you need to ask the agent and say, is this seller selling because they're buying? Is this seller selling because they're downsizing, or are they upsizing? Or are they just selling and not buying? You need to know the answer. Does the seller need to sell or not? Are they selling because their mortgage is too high and therefore they need to sell? All of those things will impact the likelihood of a seller deciding whether or not to accept your offer. All right. So one of the pieces of, I probably need to add this in to first-time buyer advice when you're making, or any buyer advice when you're making an offer. If you're making an offer, make sure you've asked the estate agent what the seller's situation is. Okay. So I know that at the coalface for estate agents at the moment, I've heard the expression bloodbath. Now, I'm talking about the mainstream market of transactions happening below £500,000, below £400,000 outside London. That's the market I'm talking about. Okay. And everyone I know around here who's been in a chain, who's told me before Christmas, oh yeah, we're selling a property, we're buying a property, their chains are falling apart. And their chains are falling apart, not because of unrealism, but because of things beyond their control. My buyer who is selling their place has had their thing downvalued, or their buyer's pulled out, or my seller can't find a place to buy, can't get their offer accepted, or it's just people are trapped in chains, and the chains are either frozen or falling apart. And sellers are being unrealistic on price, and buyers are refusing to pay asking prices. And so there are some very, very worried people in the estate agency world. Some very worried people. I saw a story out today, basically giving agents advice on what to do to try to weather the storm of 2023. Now, I take no joy whatsoever in anyone losing their job or losing their employment. It is horrific. That is a horrible thing to happen to anyone. It's a horrible thing for anyone to be facing. The stress of not knowing if you're going to have a job or not, especially in the cost of living crisis right now, is horrific. Okay, so the people suffering the most in this market right now are the estate agents, and estate agents worse even than conveyancers and surveyors. Okay, because conveyancers and surveyors get paid whether the transaction completes or not. Estate agents only get paid if the transaction completes. So remember that estate agents are working for free unless the transaction goes through. All right. So the nicer you are to estate agents that you're dealing with, first of all, the nicer human being you are. And secondly, the better your chance of them wanting to pick you as the buyer if they've got competing buyers on properties, or to recommend you as the buyer. And just as a human, fellow human to human, please understand that a lot of these guys are frankly panicking. Okay. And that's going to lead to people saying whatever they can to try and make a deal happen. Okay. If they don't have the wherewithal and the experience to get their sellers to get the price down and to be honest with buyers, you're going to have people who've got little experience, people, especially people who've only got a couple of years experience. There's going to be blind panic. So please be kind. Yeah, even when you've got, there are still, unfortunately, an awful lot of people out there with some very old-fashioned views, and it's very difficult when you're being treated poorly, especially. I'm not going to go into that. It's a different story, but there are people frightened for their jobs and frightened for their livelihoods. Yeah. So guys, and that's only going to get worse before it gets better this year. Okay. The talk behind the scenes in estate agency is, how do we survive 2023? That's the talk. I would like you all to bear that in mind. If you are a seller not lowering your price, you are adding to the stress of your estate agent. If they're saying, look, there aren't any offers, I can't get you offers at your asking price, you should just take your house off the market with that agent, right? Because you're costing them time and money, and they're not going to earn anything from you, and you're adding to their stress. Or you should lower the price. Or you should ask yourself, do I really want to sell or not? If not, just I'm thinking much more about the self-employed agents here and the small owner managers of their own businesses. The larger corporates, the employees of those companies are just as afraid as anybody else. But there's less of a case of people costing agents money if you leave your house on the market when you're with an agent that's got a lot of property and they're a big, busy corporate. Shall we have some questions, or shall I wrap it up? 45 minutes. Oh, this has been longer than I wanted anyway. Guys, any questions on median versus average? There's lots more to talk about in the market. There's so much happening. And I am going to be By the way, guys, some of you have very kindly subscribed to my mailing list, my email mailing list. There is a link. If you go to the thing that says all of my links and click on that, it's my Linktree link, you'll see the email mailing list. I am going to start putting out some blogs and videos to people who are on the mailing list a little bit before I publish some of the pre-recorded videos. I won't. The live streams will still be the same, but I'm going to start doing some more in-depth stories on stuff with a bit more data. And I'll do a blog with a video, a pre-recorded video on the blog, and those will be going out to journalists and people following my mailing list before they go out to the public. So do sign up to my mailing list, my email mailing list, if you haven't, and you'd like to get to be the first one to hear those stories. Thank you, Regina. Regina, I still haven't seen a message from you privately anywhere, so I still can't thank you for what you're doing in moderating the comments. So I appreciate that. I can't see any questions, I don't think. Anyone got any questions? I did see Gavin Ward saying that sometimes conveyancers only get abortive fees to cover disbursements. I didn't know that. In my experience, that's not been the case. But that is interesting to know. Okay, Craig Wood asks, when do you think the penny will finally drop for sellers who seem completely disconnected from reality? I think come June, when the data comes out, is when sellers will have a kick up the arse. Do you know something? I think it's going to take it. I think you're going to see a gradual capitulation of sellers, gradually, as more official data comes out showing the prices are falling. I think actually this is going to take a really long time. And I think that those sellers who have convinced themselves of the value of their property and who are leaving it on the market and sitting there and waiting, note, I'm waiting. If they have to sell, I think it might even be the autumn before you really see the cascade of people going, I want to get sold before Christmas. So yeah, maybe June. It's painfully slow, but there's no rush. There's no rush, guys, because let me finish with this. This is a really important point I wanted to say. Even if my prediction of 35% house price falls from last year, so we're now talking about, because they've fallen 5% officially, and I think they're actually fallen 10%. So I think we're going to see another 25% falls from where we are today at the coalface. And that's going to take another couple of years. If I was buying today and I had the money today, I wouldn't be expecting 25% off a realistically priced property today. I would price in the cost of rent for 2 years if I didn't buy it, and the value of just the security of getting to a home that I'm going to live in for the long term now. So of a realistically priced property that didn't have competing buyers, because if you've got competing buyers, you're not going to get it anyway, right? I would probably be looking today at 10 to 15% off asking price as a good, safe buy if I was buying to keep it for at least 5 years. All right? So if you're thinking, well, Harold, Charlie, you said 35%. I think we're already 10% into that 34%. Officially, we're at 5% down from the nationwide prices, nearly 6% down already. But that's still got a few months delay in it. I think with a few months delay, we're going to see another 5%. So we're at 10 to 12% off the highs at the coalface, which gives us another 15. Oh, my maths has gone out the window. If we're at 10% now, there's 25% to go until we hit the bottom. But you'd have to wait 2 years for that, which there's no point in doing if you want a home. So I would be paying, if today's realistic asking prices are 25% above the eventual bottom, I would be paying 10 to 15% below today's realistic asking prices, and I'd be happy with that, and I would not feel like I was overpaying. Does that make sense? DJ's question. Where's DJ's question? That is a very good question, DJ. So DJ asks, why aren't lenders, surveyors devaluing in accordance to accepted forward future prices? Right. Well, I can't speak for them, But one of the things that you've got to remember is that the values that they put on, because when a lender surveyor goes around and looks at a property, they also talk to the agent and say, could you please show me what prices most recently have been agreed? And they will find out anecdotally what comparable properties have sold for recently in the area. They are not required to make future valuations. That's not what's they are required to value the property of that value today. Does that make sense? They want to know today's market value because the mortgage is given on today's market value. Now, will the lenders themselves be factoring the prices in their lending criteria and their affordability? Yes, that's where they'll factor that in. But the lenders surveyors are based on today's valuation on what are the most recent comparables in that area. Does that make sense? So the lenders surveyors are never speculating on forward prices. I hope that answers your question. By the way, I am hearing, that's an interesting question. Amir Ahmed says, how do you bid on a house that's listed with multiple agencies? Well, first of all, when they're listed with multiple agencies, it usually means they're quite desperate, the sellers. Secondly, I would go to whichever agency you think is the most professional to deal with. I'd ring each one of them up and say, thank you for offering this property, and see which one treats you the best, and give that agent the chance to get the fee for selling that house. That's what I would do. That's a great question, Jimmy Davis. What would the best agent data need to show for me to change my prediction? It would need to show more so the first thing that comes to mind, and this is off the top of my head, it would need to show, and I'll get it up on screen, this particular thing. Let me just go back to the England prices. So you see these two numbers here, the total number of homes actually for sale, right? It would need to show that the sale agreed number was climbing faster than the total homes number. Does that make sense? That would be the first indicator to me that the market was turning, that we'd hit the ball. Now, that might happen a little bit on the way down, and I always look at the longer trends. And what made me so confident the house prices were turning this time last year was that I suddenly saw the opposite happening. I suddenly saw, for the first time in like 2 years, new properties coming to the market and just sitting there for quite a long time. It shouldn't be. And so at the moment, every week, roughly 4 new homes being listed for sale for every 1 new home going under offer. Now that is a very strong downward indicator on prices. Significant changes in the relationship between the median prices, so the median price for the for sale stuff and the median price for under offer stuff. Again, if I started to see the median price for the sale agreed stuff getting closer to the median for sale stuff, that would make me predict a positive turn. Does that make sense? So I hope that answers your question. Is that an acceptable answer? Anyone got any follow-up questions on that? Because that was a great question, Jimmy. Thank you. Craig Wood asks, with multiple agencies, could you put different offers at each agency? No, absolutely not. They've all got the same client. That wouldn't make sense. Sean Forge says 2 houses on the same agent, with the same agent near me, one for 250, one for 265. I mean, you haven't given enough information to answer that question. So which should you buy? Which one do you like the most? If they're both identical, you got to ask the agent what the reason for the different asking price. Ask for the seller situation. Which one has a chain? Which one doesn't? Lots of questions before I can give you an answer with that one. Emma Anderson says, so glad I watched tonight. I was going to cave tomorrow and offer what they want. Won't now. Needed a pep talk. Wow. Stand your ground. Emma, I think you've made an offer, haven't you? But you're sticking to your ground on your offer. If no one else is offering, if they haven't got any other offers, then they've got no choice but to accept your offer if they need to move. We just don't know if they need to move, do we? That's the difficulty. Right, guys, thanks very much. I am so crap at keeping these to half an hour, aren't I? You're all cool. You're all brilliant. One more. So John Rocks says, hi Charlie, from your video today, how to choose the correct agent. Would it be advisable to ask the agent to go around and demonstrate the selling techniques to you as the owner being a potential buyer? No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. On that happy note, I'm going to call it. I'm going to say thank you very much. Remember, if you're a first-time buyer, you haven't got a mortgage in principle, you need to get one. Go to the link below to talk to my mortgage guys if you do. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I've got plans to do a back to basics video because I know I've got a lot of new subscribers who haven't seen a lot of my older videos. Please check my older videos if you've got other questions, because I've got answers to most of them. But I'm going to do a step-by-step, straight out of the box. If you're a first-time buyer, what do you need to know if you want to buy a house? And I'm going to do some videos about Best Agent, and I'm going to do some of these story videos, which I'm going to hope you to get in the media as well. So lots of love, lots of luck. See you on the next one. Bye for now. Good night.